Good evening, everyone, and happy Sunday. This is Rebecca with Red True Crime, also channel of I Know History or Do I? Might see that kind of double title there. So the topic, who is ICE and what did they actually do and what can they do, is both a history topic and it's also going to be a true crime topic because with the shooting of Renee Good in Minneapolis, so many people have given their opinion on who's at fault and what should be done, myself included. Was it a crime that the agents shot her? Did they have the legal right to shoot her and whatnot? And a lot of people seem to think that they're not law enforcement officers, that they can't arrest people and they have limited powers. So sit back, we're gonna go into all this and you're gonna see how everything became what we know today with ICE. Okay, everybody, thank you for sticking in. So, welcome back to your go to channel for deep dives into stories that shape our world. I'm Rebecca, and today we're exploring a topic that is as timely as it is controversial: the history of U.S. immigration and customs enforcement, also known as ICE, and its sweeping powers into 2026. So, from its origins in the nation's founding, through racist policies like the Chinese Exclusion Act, to the iconic processing at Ellis Island, to the post 9/11 Patriot Act that turbocharged security measures. We'll cover how this agency came to be and what it can do now. So, and if you're in Greensboro like me, sorry, my there we go. So if you're in Greensboro like me, then you obviously know of people that this has affected and how bad things have actually gotten. So let's see. Let me get back to what we were going to talk about here, and we will go from there. Hitting buttons and knocked over my script. Okay, here we go. Sorry about that. It's a lot of notes. Okay. So if you are into history or true crime or any of that, hit that like and subscribe button and stick around and we'll get through this. So to understand ICE, we have to go way back, like before the agency even existed. Immigration enforcement in America didn't start in 2003. Its roots trace to the country's earliest days in the late 1700s. So, in the late 1700s, as the young United States grappled with building a nation, founding fathers like Alexander Hamilton pushed for laws on customs and import taxes. So, the very first Congress in 1789 established the U.S. Customs Service under the Treasury Department to collect duties on goods entering the country. And this was about revenue, but it laid the groundwork for border control. It really did. So, by the 1800s, waves of immigrants arrived and the federal government stepped in. And this brings us to one of the darkest chapters, the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882. These ladies right here are a part of that. So, the first federal law, and this was to restrict immigration based on nationality and race. Now, it institutionalized anti-Asian racism and set precedents for future exclusionary policies. So, Chinese immigration began during the California Gold Rush in the 1840s, and it boomed with the Transcontinental Railroad in the 1860s. And so by the 1870s, about 100,000 Chinese laborers had arrived from southern China and they were escaping poverty and war. And these people toiled in the mining, the railroads, and the farms for low pay and under brutal conditions. But the Panic of 1873 depression led white workers, especially in California, to blame the Chinese for job losses. So racial stereotypes painted them as the unassimilable threats, violence erupted. And as you can see, these little caricatures that they put out. And over 200 ethnic cleansings, like the 1871 Los Angeles riots and 1885 to 1886 Seattle expulsions. So politicians like Dennis Kearney rallied with the Chinese must go, and the 1875 Page Act had already banned most Chinese women, assuming they were prostitutes, to prevent families. So the Burlingame Treaty of 1868 encouraged immigration, but the 1880 Angel Treaty allowed limits. So Congress passed the Exclusion Act on May 6, 1882, signed by President Chester A. Arthur. After vetoing a harsher version, it banned Chinese laborers for 10 years, denied citizenship, and required certificates for reentry. Now, enforcement involved customs officials and later the Bureau of Immigration. Extensions followed. The 1888 Scott Act, the 1892 Geary Act, made permanent in 1902 and extended to territories in 1904. So repeal came in 1943 via the Magnuson Act amid World War II alliances. Now, you also have to remember during World War II, we also had concentration camps for Asian Americans because Asian fear was a real thing at that time after the bombing of Pearl Harbor. Not excusing it, but this anti-Asian sentiment has been around for some time. And it allowed 105 immigrants yearly and citizenship. So full quotas ended in 1965. Congress apologized in 2012 for its racist legacy. Now, this act centralized federal immigration control and echoed in later policies. So in 1891, the Immigration Act created the Office of Immigration under the Treasury, establishing federal control over immigration. Now, this led directly to the creation of a dedicated processing station. Now, the most famous, Ellis Island, which opened on January 1st, 1892 in New York Harbor as the nation's busiest immigrant inspection and processing station. But before Ellis Island, immigrants were processed at Castle Garden in Manhattan, but it was overwhelmed and corrupt. Now, the federal government built Ellis Island to handle the massive influx from Europe, Italians, Irish, Germans, Eastern Europeans, and more. So from 1892 to 1954, nearly 12 million immigrants passed through, with the peak year in 1907 seeing over 1 million arrivals. Now, the process was remarkably efficient. For most, immigrants arrived by ship, underwent a quick medical inspection on the docks or on aboard. Doctors checked for trachoma, which is like an eye disease, tuberculosis, which was highly fatal and highly infectious, or other conditions using tools like button hooks to flip eyelids. Sounds very uncomfortable. Then in the Great Hall, legal inspectors reviewed ship manifests, asking about name, origin, destination, job prospects, and if they were likely to become a public charge. Most were processed in a few hours. Only about 2% were denied entry, often for health, criminal, or anarchist reasons. Now, detainees could face longer stays in hospitals or wards. Now, Ellis Island symbolized opportunity for many. An estimated 40% of Americans today descend from someone who passed through. But it also enforced restrictions, including quotas from the 1920s that shifted processing aboard and reduced Ellis Island's role to mostly detention by the 1930s, including 4 suspected subversives during the Red Scare. Now, I'm going to play one little clip. And those of us who watch this stuff, being cinephiles, can always remember this iconic scene from the second Godfather movie when Vito Corleone is on the ship coming to Ellis Island. And there you have it. So the 1924 Immigration Act set quotas favoring Northern Europeans, marking the end of mass open immigration. In 1933, the Bureaus of Immigration and Naturalization merged into the Immigration and Naturalization Service, or known as INS, under Labor, moving to Justice in 1940. Now, INS managed visas, citizenship, deportations, underfunded, and overwhelmed post World War II. So it seems like all these government departments have always been underfunded and overwhelmed. So the Customs Service handled trade crimes. So now the system held until September 11th, 2001. Now we're about to have a big change. The 9/11 attacks exposed immigration vulnerabilities. Hijackers entered legally but exploited gaps. Fear tied immigration to terrorism. And I still feel 9/11 still has people thinking that way to this day in 2026. That's what I think. 6 weeks later, October 26, 2001, President Bush signed the USA Patriot Act. Yes, right there. Look at him. So the USA Patriot Act. And expanding surveillance for immigration, indefinite detention for terror suspects, biometric tracking, integrated data, tougher visas, warrantless searches in context, intelligence sharing. But the Patriot Act framed immigration as security. Now, let me say this. The Patriot Act, now, I don't know if you go and you open up a new bank account, there's always this little disclosure they ask you to check off on, and it's about the Patriot Act. It does say the Patriot Act. The Patriot Act, to break it down on a regular level, is essentially one of the main tenets of it is verifying who you are when you're opening up a bank account, when you're getting a passport, when you're getting a driver's license. You need to know who you are. They need to know who you are. Like, one thing was, like, if you get pulled over, and this is in any state because this is a federal law, you get pulled over and you don't have your driver's license or any documents stating who you are, police can detain you up to 72 hours to confirm your identity. Yeah. So you're going to see a lot of clips of ICE officers. I mean, not in this, but you've seen this on YouTube of ICE officers going up to people and saying, "What is your name? Do you have your ID? Where are you from?" And you've got some of the Somali immigrants like, "Minneapolis is my home. The U.S. is my home." "Well, where were you born?" "It doesn't matter. This is my home." It's not helping. And then they're refusing to give identification over. We actually have a federal law that's been on the books since 2001, 25 years. So you got to have your ID. I don't, whether you're legal or not, you got to have some form of identification to show who you are. And this is why you can blame the terrorists from 9/11 for this. So there you have it. So in 2002, let me get back to where I was. Okay. So the 2002 Homeland Security Act, created by the Department of Homeland Security, or DHS, absorbing 22 agencies, including INS and Customs. So on March 1st, 2003, ICE launched. Ta-da! Okay. ICE launched, merging INS interior enforcement with customs investigations. First leader, Michael J. Garcia. Goal, counterterrorism, smuggling, illegal immigration via the Patriot Act tools. So INS split. You see, you have USCIS for benefits, CBP for borders, and ICE interior enforcement. That's a lot of initials. I have no idea what a lot of it means. But ICE, Immigration Customs Enforcement, grew fast. By 2008, they had 20,000 plus employees, 400 offices, ops like Community Shield for gangs, IP Rights Center. President Obama prioritized criminal deportations, record 400,000 a year. And it caused controversies, separations. People were upset about the detention, especially with children. Trump's first term, zero tolerance. He had raids. He ended DACA temporarily. And then when Biden came in, he focused on threats like fentanyl, paused some deportations. But in 2026, under Trump's second term, ICE is supercharged. So, yeah, I would say definitely they are supercharged. I mean, we're seeing it, the protests, we're seeing what they're doing, how they're grabbing people. We're seeing it live and in color. Supercharges, I would say, would be like an understatement, but it is what it is. So, what can ICE do in 2026? Authority from Immigration and Nationality Act, custom laws, executive orders, and Patriot Act expansions. So, there's three branches. Enforcement and removal operations, or the ERO. They deal with arrests, detains, removes violators, detention, quadrupling to 120,000 plus beds, $45 billion in funding, and broader expedited removal stands hearings, meaning they can remove people without a hearing. They have now been given that leeway. The other branch, Homeland Security Investigations, or HSI. They do cross-border crimes, trafficking, drugs, exploitation, IP theft, global partners, AI surveillance, social media monitoring, location tracking. And this department is amplified by the Patriot Act. And then you have the Office of the Principal Legal Advisor, or the OPLA. That's your legal support. Their powers, they have warrantless border arrests. Interior needs warrants, consent, but it's kind of blurry in 2026. Ended sensitive location policy, meaning now you can arrest at schools, at hospitals. $170 billion over 4 years they've been given. 10,000 plus agents. They have raids, they have drones, they have facial recognition. And under the One Big Beautiful Bill, funds enforcement. So it ended the TPS, parole for millions, Border Patrol leads to some ICE offices. But the pushback, abolish the ICE Act, force limits in Congress, states like Illinois restrict cooperation. So you've got states pushing back like Minneapolis, Illinois, and I think maybe California. I'm not sure on that one. But I do know that, the sanctuary cities are gonna get hit. Trump is pulling funding from states that have sanctuary cities. This is slowly becoming a major civil war in this country. So, in closing, ICE evolved from customs to powerhouse, shaped by an Exclusion Act, racism, Ellis Island's mass processing, and the Patriot Act security. And in 2026, the power is peaking, sparking rights debates, protests, riots. And you tell me, what do you think? Security or overreach that they're doing at this point? Comment below and subscribe. But let me know what you guys really think. Do you think ICE is abusing their powers, or do you think they are well within their right to behave in the manner they have been? Let me know. And if you think Renee Good's death was murder, go ahead and put that in the comments too. Or do just let me know. But this is Rebecca with Red True Crime. Also, I know history, or do I? And let me know what you think. So have a good night, and thanks again.